Hi, and welcome to my podcast, Pregnant in Japan, your podcast about pregnancy, birth, and the joy of a relaxed motherhood in Japan. My name is Vicky. I'm a German mom living in Tokyo. I'm sharing my positive birth experience to inspire you with yours. Today we have Anne-Sophie. Anne-Sophie is a psychologist and she's originally from France. She came to Tokyo a few months ago for her PhD at the University of Keio, and she studies health and welfare of children whose moms live abroad. And previously she did her master thesis on Malian West African moms who raised their children in France. Hi, Anne-Sophie, welcome to the Pregnant in Japan podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being my guest. Anne-Sophie, I told you when I start my episodes, I like to ask unconventional questions. And my unconventional question for you today is, if you had to choose hamburger, salad, or sushi, what would it be?
Sushi.
Sushi, okay.
Yes.
Are you not eating meat?
Actually, yeah. I don't eat meat.
Vegetarian though.
And I love seafood and fish, so sushi for me.
Sushi, okay. Then I guess you are in the right country.
Yes.
Okay. Anne-Sophie, I would like to ask you something about cultural aspects that you have noticed regarding your research, Malian or West African moms. How do they give birth? How is their approach toward pregnancy, breastfeeding, or maybe even early childhood education? How does it differ from France, maybe, because I think this is your emphasis on France, but maybe also Western countries. Could you give us some of your research insights?
Of course. So I interviewed two Malian mothers and one West African mother who gave birth in France. So it's a particular context because they give birth in the French context. So I didn't have many feedback about the way they would give birth because they chose to give it in a French context. All I can say is that the French context is a very medicalized one. So the mothers there try to follow the medical advices, right? And all I can say is that there are a lot of cultural differences when it comes to representations of children in general and education. So one of the biggest difference of cultural difference is about those beliefs regarding infants, but also when it comes to childcare, there is what we call the proximal and distal approach. So it's two approaches of childcare on the spectrum. Proximal approach is composed of all the child care practices that brings together the child and their caregiver. For example, the child is going to be in constant skin-to-skin contact. So that's a proximal approach of child care. And a distal approach is all about making the child as individual, as individualized, and as independent as possible. So in French culture, it's all about a distal approach of childcare. Right. So those are the two main cultural differences between traditional environment in Western Africa and the very medicalized environment in France.
Wow, I just imagine now being a mom coming from being West African Malian and then going to a country like France or like a Western European country. It's so different, right?
Yes, for example, co-sleeping is going to be discouraged by French medical staff, but co-sleeping is a proximal approach of childcare, and it's very important in traditional environments such as Western Africa.
Yeah, so they have more the traditional approach, right? And do you know how these moms who then choose to give birth in France, how did they deal with it? Do you know anything about it?
Absolutely. During my research, I made a lot of research about massages, and one of those traditional Malian massage is about suspending the child through with his ankles. So it's a little bit impressive, but the mom showed me.
wait. It's one more time.
So the baby is suspended with the mom's hand, like the child's ankles are here, and the baby is suspended like this.
What does suspended mean? I'm sorry.
So the body is in the air. And yes, it's a very particular type of stimulation, body stimulation, and it's practiced in a traditional background. And the mom showed that to me, and the baby was very stimulated. Not afraid or not crying or anything, just stimulated by the mom's practice. And the staff looked at that and turned their head and told me, I don't like this because I'm afraid that it hurts the baby. So there was
the hospital
the medical
staff. The medical, yes.
And so there was a kind of judgment from the hospital staff. And of course, the mother can see that. So there is always the underlying judgment of she is a bad mother, and of course the mother can sense it. So that was one of the challenge, like the judgments from the medical staff who looks at this traditional practice as a sign of of her being not a good mother. So that's one of the challenges that I noticed.
Okay. Wow, I'm just really impressed now by what you told me.
I can send you a picture from my work.
Oh yes, please. I would like to also put it in the show notes. Yeah, I think about the judgment of the medical side, I guess, or I notice for myself, everything that's new for us or that's different, at the beginning, we are, generally speaking, right? I generalize, more, we have like a negative approach towards because it's new and we don't know it. And also the doctors in our Western world, they are so, they learn so much from their books, but not so much about the traditional ways, how it was all the millions years ago and how it worked. And they seem to forget about it. There are also, I mean, of course, we need the medical word, and it gives us so many opportunities, and it prevents emergencies and so on. But I mean, there are also very good things about the natural approach and the approach from back then, right? Or maybe even, like you say, today in some tribes. So I think we can learn a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my research was all about taking a look at the advices given by the medical staff and wondering if those advices are purely rooted in medical knowledge or if some of them are actual cultural representation of what it is like to be a good mother. And I saw that their advices weren't as objective as they appear to be. So I think it's a very interesting thing.
And you think, they were objective?
They were not as objective.
Yeah, I think it's also like this, the system, it's what they learn at the university. And I mean, I don't blame them. What you learn, that you take.
It's important.
Yeah, and it's important, and you take it for granted. But I also like to look a little bit on the sides, what's going on, and what can we learn from the past. So that's why I asked so many questions.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, thank you for this. Have you noticed any mental health issues for pregnant women or moms to be or in the early motherhood when they are abroad from their country?
So when it comes to regular mental health for pregnant women and women who are going through childbirth, there are a lot of things that I have been researched about. For example, what we call psychological transparency. So pregnant mothers are going through something so strong, and preparing yourself to give birth is also revisiting your own relationship with your parental figures, right? So depending on the mother, of course, some of those relationships may not have been ideal. So revisiting those can be challenging. And it can also bring up a lot of anxieties about how to be a good parent. And at that time, a lot of psychologists noticed that mothers are going to like take comfort in, for example, religion or spiritual beliefs. And it's especially true for migrant mothers, because when you are away from your own country and from your own support system, you need to, how can I say, reconnect with some of aspects of it. And some women who are not particularly religious, but who come from a religious background, are going to revisit all of these anxieties by reconnecting with spiritual beliefs. So this is one thing that we noticed as a psychologist who work on the question.
So one more time. So when they are abroad, they encounter especially difficulties because they are far away and they are searching for connection, for example, spiritual or religious
yes, exactly.
side. Yeah. Okay. So because I guess when you are spiritual, or if you are believe in let's say in a certain religion, then you get the support, right? Also, like,
yes,
mental
you get the support. Absolutely.
Yes.
You get the mental support. So that's why
Right.
it's very important for the medical staff to know that a woman who is reconnecting with those beliefs, it's very important for her to get that mental support, because if she is far away from her support system, then she needs another kind of support as strong as her family or her friends. So that's one thing I like to work on.
Yeah, I wonder, very practical, how pregnant women abroad can do it to reconnect. Okay, they are far away from their family. So for me, in my case, it would be spiritual. I would do like a lot of meditation, and that would help me. And for religious moms, they can go, I guess, to communities and search the help there, right? And put emphasis on this.
If it's not spiritual, it's all about reconnecting with a community of your cultural background. And that's what we noticed with the association I've been talking to. Like, the French mothers don't like they weren't in any association before their pregnancy, but because of their pregnancy, they are going to look for an association with their cultural background.
Right. And I don't know if I told you, but I am an intercultural trainer back in Germany. And actually, what we know that when you are abroad in another country, let's say for me, I'm German and now in Japan, my original culture, so my German culture, would become even stronger when I'm abroad. The values are suddenly more important because yes, I'm abroad and I see all the differences and what's lacking, what's not as good, and I put more emphasis on my German background, on my German culture. So that's something common.
Yeah, that's what I call a cultural cradle. So the environment in which you were born, in which you grew up, is so important. It's part of you. You bring it along with you when you go abroad. And when everything seems unfamiliar, or when unfamiliar things bring up anxiety, then you have to connect to what you know, what is familiar, which is your original cultural background.
Yes, correct. Exactly. Thanks for adding this. Then something else came to my mind. You mentioned while pregnancy, we are recapturing the relationship to our mom or maybe parents. Yep. Because I think if you are not conscious about it, how can you... Oh no, I guess you have to be conscious about it to work through that, right? And I mean, how can mothers deal with it or...
Well, for example, if those relationships with your parental figures were filled with abandonment issues or separation anxieties, having a child is going to make you revisit that, and it can put you into a very vulnerable state. So if you are in that situation, it may be a good idea to reach out to a professional and try to talk it out so that all these anxious feelings don't affect your relationship with the child, because sometimes it does. And then early childhood become a challenge because of that. So it's important to know when to ask for help.
Yeah. And I guess for that, you kind of need to be conscious about it, or at least have heard about it. So I'm glad to
reflect on it.
Yeah, reflect. So I'm glad we are talking about it now to raise some awareness. Actually, when I was pregnant, I did, while already being here in Japan, I reached out to a hypnobirthing expert in Germany, and we did a course. It was, I think, 10 sessions. And one of the big topics was also the relationship to our parents, and also, of course, how our moms gave birth. But yeah, the relationship to our parents, and what we liked about it, and what we didn't like about it, and how we want to be, what kind of mom or dad we want to be. And and I really, really think it helped me so much, because at the beginning I thought, maybe there were some things that weren't ideal. But then when I wrote it all down, and I think also writing it down is one of the major things to create some consciousness and to be more aware about it, I figured, everything, like how I was raised, that was pretty good. And actually, I don't want to raise my child a whole lot different than I was raised. And just having that clear in my head, that was a relief, you know. It was like I had it in the back of my head, and once we worked through it, I had it on paper, said, okay, yes, I know it's gonna be that way, or at least that's what I aim for, and I had kind of a calmness in my head.
Yeah, it's important to have like a balanced view of these relationships.
Yes. Yeah, great. Anne-Sophie, I also would like to ask you, when we talked about the mom's challenges, or maybe also during pregnancy or giving birth in another country, then what's your original place or home country? Do you know anything about how it could affect later on the babies or the children?
Yes. So one of my main concern is when it comes to early childhood, the first few moments or the first few weeks that the mother spends with their child is going to be so crucial, because the mother is in such a vulnerable state on a psychological level, right? That if the medical staff is rude, or if if the medical staff has some misconception or like prejudices against the mother, it's going to impact her, and it's going to impact the quality of the relationship with the child. So to me, it's all about having a good support system. And of course, medical staff is part of it, but community is part of it too. So to me, the biggest challenge is about a support system when it comes to migrant mothers. As I said, it's one of the biggest change is to lose your original support system. So if migrant mothers have a good support system, then every obstacles that will come their way, they will be able to get past them, and it won't have a negative impact on the relationship with their child.
Yeah, that's what I have noticed here. On almost all the interviews, doesn't matter if it was experts or moms, like everybody said the same thing. It's so crucial to have a community and that you can reach out to. Or, I mean, even in my case, I didn't have like a lot of people who would be there to help me, like, I don't know, doing my groceries or something like this, or taking my baby, but even just talk to, or I say just, I think it's actually a biggie, talk to other moms who are in exactly the same situation. That's already so helpful. And yeah, maybe as you say, also people from the same country, or who have maybe a similar religion as you do, or same religion as you do, can also be supportive.
Yeah.
And is there anything? Okay, so I'm thinking, what exactly can moms? What kind of measures can moms take to raise a child in a foreign country? So you would probably say community, right?
Yes, yes. Definitely be in contact with your family and friends from your country of origin. Yes, my main concern would be isolation. So it's all about avoiding to be alone all of the time. Those would be my advice.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Because you are from France, and I know like most of the research you do is regarding French moms, right? Yes. And when you do your research, are there any parallels from moms, French moms, and moms from other Western cultures?
Yes, I would say that, as I explained earlier, the childcare approach is pretty similar from one Western country to another. For example, co-sleeping is not very practiced in France, but also in other Western countries. So, children are going to be, the education is going to be about making the child as independent as possible, even from an early age. Breastfeeding in France is practiced often until like 3 months old. I mean, it's not uncommon that French moms stop breastfeeding at 3 months old. And I know that for other Western countries, it may not be as soon, but let's say that breastfeeding can be stopped very early compared to Japan, for example. I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
Yes. I think you did right at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. That's what I actually thought too. If it's France or Germany or UK,
Yeah,
the approaches are very similar. Yeah, especially when you compare to like a West African country, right?
Yes, where all the childcare is going to be about bringing the child and the caregiver together, like skin to skin, and a proximal approach of childcare.
Yeah, talking about that, maybe I can ask you a last question, because maybe you have already noticed I like the natural approach a lot, although I'm very thankful for the medical support. I like the combination of both, actually. Are there any information you could give us regarding Malian moms, or let's say what Western pregnant moms can learn from the Malian approach?
So, yes, I understand your question. I have a different opinion about that. I think that each culture has its own approach, and that one isn't above the other. As to know whether or not we can learn from one another, sure, yes, why not? But to me, the most important is that the mom is alright with the decisions she takes. The most important thing is that the relationship between the mom and the baby is as fulfilling and as functional as possible. So I'm not sure that, how can I say, I wouldn't give advices like that about other cultures. I would just say that whatever makes you comfortable is the right thing.
Yeah, thank you for pointing it out. I don't always need to agree on all points with my interviews. But that's a very important approach. And now that you say it, you are totally right. To feel good about it. Because if you feel aligned with what you are doing, I think it will definitely affect the relationship to your baby and the well-being of mom and child, right?
Yes. I think what's most important is that you're able to like have good models and in your support system. For example, if you have a good relationship with your own parents, you can eventually ask them for advices. Yes, to me, whatever makes the mother comfortable is the right thing to do.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that was a very wise last sentence that you said at the interview. I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Anne-Sophie. I really appreciate it. All your insights and the research you did, and all the best to you and for your PhD in Tokyo. And
Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's keep in touch, please.
Let's keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.